Welcome back to another episode of Query and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network, brought to you by, of course, WGU Indiana. Indiana.wgu.edu is their website. You'll hear us talking about them as they celebrate 10 years now, and they're going to be giving away $10,000 in scholarships. Also want to thank St. Elmo, as always. Their bourbon, by the way, Derek, have you had it yet?
Yeah, delicious.
Fantastic.
Really good.
One thing that made the Colts-Browns game enjoyable. Also, the American Dairy Association Winners Drink Milk and the Shop Indy. They have locations in Broderpool, Clay Terrace, and theshopindy.com. You can get fabulous shirts like this one here for the, of course, fantastic Indianapolis Racers of yesteryear. All kinds of stuff from nostalgia. But, Derek, I was a little nostalgic watching the Colts and the Browns because for those that are old enough like me to remember, the very first time the Indianapolis Colts made the NFL playoffs, they went to Cleveland in a game that they were just kind of chasing Eric Dickerson, Jack Trudeau.
87,
era. Yeah, and they couldn't get it done. Very reminiscent of what we saw here in Week 5 for the Colts against Cleveland.
Yeah, just kind of a really a mess of a game, I thought, yesterday. And
it's not yesterday, Derek. It's over the weekend.
Sorry, over the weekend, yes. Sorry, we are working on that. What is this, the 5th episode that we've done? Yeah, is this episode 6?
You think you'd get it by now.
You did it last week, to be fair. You did it a couple times last week. Yeah, okay. Multiple times, plural. Kind of a mess of a game because you had the defense really was a letdown in the first half, and then the offense was a letdown in the second half. And overall, the most frustrating game, Jake, is when the Colts don't play an A game, but they still have every opportunity to win. Like, it was there for the taking in the second half. And the offense, I think particularly the quarterback, Phillip Rivers, really ended up letting them down.
I thought the game between the Colts and Browns, and I know this sounds ridiculous, especially when doing a Colts-centric show, but I thought it almost told us more about Cleveland than it did Indianapolis. And these are two teams that, obviously, in the Colts case, they're in a difficult situation that we'll talk about where are you transitioning in quarterback eras? Are you all in for right now, or are you building step by step? You know, you've got to evaluate those things. The Browns, on the other hand, this was a big year to find out exactly who they are and whether or not Baker Mayfield is their guy. And I think we found yesterday, or excuse me, Derek, over the weekend, right?
Boy.
No, but I think we saw that offensively speaking, you know, Cleveland's got some pieces. And, you know, they can do a lot of dangerous things, and they look like they've arrived. This was a game that typically the Browns you would see fold in, right, in the fourth quarter. I think Browns fans were sitting there waiting for that to happen, and it didn't happen. So I was impressed, truth be told, by Cleveland.
Yeah, they did some just stupid stuff in the first half with some of those catches. And when you've got Beckham and Landry and all the weapons that they have, that can happen. And I thought the Colts actually pressured Mayfield a couple of times. They couldn't get home, and he was scrambling around throwing darts. I mean,
they knocked him around.
He was fantastic in the first half, and then kind of reminiscent of his entire career, it's just helter-skelter. You never know when the bottom's going to fall out for Baker Mayfield.
Have you seen the movie Helter-Skelter or read the book?
No, it's just a saying, right? Is there actually a movie about it?
Yes, there's a movie.
What, was there a Rolling Stones song or something?
No.
Am I thinking of Gimme Shelter?
No, it was the Beatles.
Or Helter
It was the Beatles, and Charles Manson claimed that Helter Skelter, the words, the lyrics in the song, are what led to his epiphany for the oncoming race war that he wanted to start, which led to the Manson murders. And so, therefore, the book about all of it is called Helter Skelter.
Yeah, not every saying needs an explanation. Like, people know.
That
like
was
if
my
I say
first fascination with the Manson murders was seeing that book on my parents' bookshelf.
People know what I mean.
What's that?
Smooth like butter. You know, people know what I mean when I say that. We don't have to explain, like, the science of butter.
Helter Skelter was a good way of discussing, especially offensively. Look, the reality is the Colts' issue is pretty simple, Derek, and that is this is a team that was orchestrated to have a veteran quarterback to just kind of keep things stable while utilizing their offensive line and a good rush attack to control the football over the course of games, not turn the ball over, and let their defense and their running attack win games for them. Right now, they can't run the football. Their offensive line, while it is good, has not been as dominant as was expected at this point. And they have a quarterback that's turning the ball over, which quite simply you cannot do with the way the Colts are set up.
Everything stinks on offense. Let's just call it what it is. The entire offense stinks.
Really?
They can't run. They can't pass, and they can't block.
What are you, Jim Mora?
So all of those things. I mean, I am just been completely disappointed.
Are you going to drop the diddly poo here?
In the first 5 games with them, they have been diddly poo offensively. Look, Rivers threw the worst interception, the worst pick six that you're ever going to see yesterday. Like, that almost looked like it was in slow motion.
I mean, Phillip Rivers, who has kind of a sidearm motion anyway, right? He drops back. He's not the most mobile quarterback, especially at this point in his career. He drops back. He looks this way, and then he actually looked. Then he pointed. Then he sent the corner a text.
Yes,
I'm throwing the ball to you.
I saw that. He took out an iPhone and sent a text.
He did. He texted. Then not only did he
bad.
Here's the thing. Not only did he throw right where he was looking, like I'm looking at the camera, right? I'm looking right at you right now, and I'm about to throw you the ball. He didn't even wait. I mean, he kind of shot-putted the ball. Like, here, do you want this? It was bad.
And it was so slow, right?
That's what I mean.
The throw just had no velocity on it.
Everyone saw. I mean,
yeah,
that was a broadcaster's dream because you already knew what you were going to say about it being a pick six because you could see it coming that easy.
I'll give him a little bit of a break on the safety. I feel like there was first off, running a play action out of your own end zone with a quarterback who can't move is a problem. The fair catch inside the 5-yard line is a problem. So there was a lot that went into, I thought, that safety. But still, Jake, a veteran quarterback, Phillip Rivers is a smart guy. He's been around the block. Like, he has to know the situation and where he is on the field.
I think the real conundrum here is this, and that is when you look at the Colts and you look at, like, Chris Ballard building this roster and building a team, obviously, it goes without saying, when Chris Ballard takes that job and he's building a franchise that is going to be his and putting his thumbprint on it, he's assuming Andrew Luck is going to be his quarterback for 8 years, 10 years. We know what happened there. So now you're in a position where in the beginning, Ballard wanted to rebuild the offensive line. Then he went out and just loaded up. We talked about it last week. Picks to build depth at defense. So you've got some stability in the trenches. But then what do? Do you say, okay, now what we've got to do is get a young quarterback that we're going to ride, and this is going to be who we are for the next 8 years? And is that Jacob Eason? Is it somebody? I don't know. But when they got Phillip Rivers, $25 million, mind you, okay, were they bringing in a quarterback, as I felt like was the case, to simply be kind of a veteran presence within the locker room and teach young players what it is like to be a professional in the league? Or were you getting him because you felt like you could still be all in and see what your chances were this year, and this guy's going to help us win and get to where we want to go? That's the challenge here. If Phillip Rivers is not going to be here in 5 years, so whoever's going to be the long-term quarterback for the Colts, whether it's Jacob Eason, maybe it's somebody else that they're trying to get through the draft, whatever it might be, but then you kind of reset all of a sudden. You put yourself in a position now where you got to reset once again. So which is it? Is he there just to kind of keep things stable until you find your guy, or did they push in and say, we're getting him because we think we can win right now? Because it doesn't look like they're going to be able to win deep into the playoffs with Phillip.
Well, I think it was both, because they knew that a 38-year-old wasn't going to be their long-term solution. So it was a win-now
I know,
move.
But were they trying to win right now with him?
Yes, because you don't make the Buckner trade and throw $25 million at Phillip Rivers unless you're serious about your team being a playoff contender right now. Like, that's not the move of a front office that's waiting.
They had the cap space, right? So, I mean, there's a level of, hey, they found a 20 in their jeans while they're doing laundry. Let's go out and spend it.
There just was no slam dunk option. Every option that you look at, if they went with the draft, it would have to be, Jordan Love or somebody like that. Right. That's not a slam dunk.
Jordan Love was actually a name we talked about.
I don't care what anybody says about Cam. Look, it's criminal that the Patriots got Cam for as cheap as they did, but there were serious physical concerns with Cam Newton, and he could have been completely broken down.
I think there still could be, right?
It still could be as well. Teddy Bridgewater, some of the other options, Andy Dalton, some people mentioning yesterday, who rallied the Cowboys to win.
Bridgewater's a nice player.
Any one of those guys are probably on around the same level tier, at least we thought going into the season. But this was a risk that the Colts took, Jake. We knew that there was a chance that Phillip Rivers was completely and totally washed up. So far in 5 games, you're certainly leaning towards that. But they were convinced that Jacoby Brissett wasn't their guy. They had to move on, and this was the option that they chose. So they made their bet, and now they're going to have to lie in it.
Yeah, and that's the question is, and look, we're way cart before the horse here, but, who is their quarterback next year?
He's not on the roster.
You don't think so?
No.
So what do you do?
The Colts quarterback in 2021 is not on the roster.
So is it Jacob Eason?
Well, no, he's on the roster.
Oh, you're saying not on the roster?
Not currently on the roster.
So who is it?
I have no idea.
A rookie?
Maybe.
But then you're starting
Carson
all over
Wentz.
again.
I mean, some of the names we've thrown out there, and I'm not even convinced that he played a little bit better yesterday. I'm not even convinced that
Over
Wentz
the
is the
weekend,
guy
Eric.
long term.
Over the weekend.
Just don't even point it out. Just let it roll. Just let it roll.
It just sounds ridiculous.
Let's just have a good show.
Speaking of let it roll, when I rolled in for the taping of this, I parked and I'm getting out and I'm getting everything situated, and I could be wrong here. I think I saw. Did I see you climbing out the window of a car after you rolled in?
I'm having a little bit of I have a really reliable 12-year-old Hyundai, but I'm having a little bit of a situation with the door handle on the driver's side. It is currently not operational.
Okay.
So to get
Two questions.
to get in the car,
Right.
I have to open the back driver's side door, reach over, unlock it.
The door handle's
open
not
it,
working from the inside of the
swing it
car.
open. No, from the outside. So I can get out of the car. So you saw me climbing in, I think, the window inside to pop it back open, because what happened was I closed it, and then I needed my backpack, which was in the front seat. So I had to reach back around to open that up.
Why don't you just open the passenger side and climb over, or open the passenger side and reach in and get what you need?
This is kind of like the Colts quarterback situation, Jake. There is no good option when your driver's side door handle is broken off.
Getting it fixed?
Actually, you know what? It's a great anti-theft device
Is that
because no one can
What about
get
the
in.
club? Did you ever have the club?
I had the club.
Did the club
My-
work?
my dad-
Did everybody have the club?
God bless my dad. He's probably watching this.
Okay.
My dad was convinced. I had a very old Honda Accord that had like 200,000 miles on it. My dad used it to commute in the city, and that was my first car in high school. And my dad was convinced that if I ever left that anywhere, somebody was going to take it and chop it up for parts, because he had read something about how the most stolen car in America was 1988 to 1993 Honda Accords.
Okay.
So we had the club. And every time, in high school, all through high school, I used it. I had an internship in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where, because I was
happened to the
going
club?
into the city, I had to put the club on the car because it was street parking.
What happened to the club?
I have
Not
no idea.
yours. I'm saying the product itself.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Did people just figure out they didn't work? Like, did
No one ever stole my Honda.
maybe because it had 200,000 miles on it and a broken door?
I hit a deer in 2001, so that kind of took it out of the equation, but no one ever ended up stealing that car.
Did the Colts hit a deer in Cleveland? Is their season totaled?
No.
It's 5 weeks and people
come
jump,
on.
It is amazing on social media during Colts games. I'm not saying fans in general of any franchise. This is true anywhere. Colts are ahead, and you look at social media, and it's like, this is what I'm talking about. Here we go. Like, we're rolling. Other team takes the lead, or there's a turnover. This is terrible. Blow it up. I'm done with it. I'm never watching this again. I mean, people are very knee-jerk in sports. But the thing about this Colts team is I think we knew when Phillip Rivers was signed, you knew what you were getting, right? You knew that you were getting a guy that is extremely competitive, that has been very productive, but also takes chances. And you kind of knew what you were signing up for, feast or famine. On the days when he's good, he's really good. And you think to yourself, here we go. But on the days he's bad and makes bad decisions, like that totally telegraphed interception, then you wonder what's going on.
Yeah, and I to be honest with you, Jake, I wonder if he can be really good anymore. I think Rivers can still be good and accurate and effective, but I don't know that ceiling is even there for him anymore.
Well, it is difficult. It's difficult when you have a quarterback where his mobility is not even an option.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, you basically know, right? I mean, he drops back, you know what's coming. Okay, we're not doing a draw necessarily. And I didn't think they would miss Marlon Mack this much, but I think so much of what they wanted to do and so much of what was thought Phillip Rivers would do for them was predicated upon having a really versatile and kind of a 1-2 punch running attack. That's now gone, and so as a result, their running game has stalled. Jonathan Taylor has some promise, but when he's back there that he's getting it, he's not real shifty as of yet in the NFL. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, the injuries definitely play a part because I think Paris Campbell's another guy we haven't talked about who was supposed to play a big role in this offense, and obviously he hasn't been available and may not be available this entire season. But, overall, Jake, they just don't do anything well offensively right now. They're bad on third down. They're bad in the red zone. They're bad running the ball. They're completely ineffective and inefficient there. They can't throw downfield. And their threats at wide receiver are an aging T.Y. Hilton and Ashton Doolin?
Mo Alley Cox.
Mo Alley Cox, who had 0 targets yesterday. Where was Mo Alley Cox yesterday? What happened?
That's a good question.
Where'd he go?
I don't know.
I thought he had a great start to the season. So they've got the biggest surprise and disappointment through 5 games of the 2020 Colts has not been Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has been disappointing, but we knew that there was a chance.
Is Alley his middle name?
He would be disappointing.
Is his first name Mo Alley?
The biggest
I know
surprise.
It's Mo but is his name like Mo? And then his middle name's Alley, and he just goes by that?
No, it's Alley-Cox, isn't it?
Is that what it is? So
Yeah,
Mo's
I
his
think so.
first name.
Let me look it up.
And then Alley Cox is his last name? Because I thought Mo Alley was his name, and then his last name's Cox. Is it Alley-Cox?
No, it's Alley-Cox.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was always thinking that Mo Alley.
What was I just
but
saying?
don't people
I was
call him
trying to
Mo
make a
Alley?
point.
Am I the only one that calls him Mo Alley?
I was trying to make a point. Can I get back to that?
Yeah,
I have to
that'll know what you're talking
rethink of what that point was. The biggest surprise and disappointment of this season has been the Colts' rush offense, and that's everything. That's the running backs, and that's the offensive line. It has to be better than this. The Colts, you remember run the damn ball?
Yeah.
What happened? I mean, the Colts are running for 3.5 yards a carry. That's not even going to come close to cutting it.
Correct.
And even with Brissett's limitations last year, and this is not me caping for Rivers, even with Brissett's limitations last year, the Colts' rush offense was still really, really good.
But you had that weapon in the backfield that, when you have Marlon Mack, you get him in space is dangerous.
No, for sure.
And without him there,
you had Mack.
What's that?
And you had Mack, and
Right.
Brissett is, a slug is more mobile than a statue, but Brissett is slightly more mobile than Phillip Rivers, so at least he had some escapability, unlike Rivers.
Yeah, it's definitely, defensively too. I mean, this defense was very praised coming in, and Cleveland does have a lot of weapons offensively. But again, that's what I mean when I say that maybe taught me more about Cleveland than it did Indianapolis, because the Colts defense was disappointing, but I think Cleveland is pretty loaded offensively.
Second half, too, they really got it together. I thought overall the defensive performance was fine. It was like a C+.
But it wasn't for a defense that there was a lot of discussion as to whether or not it was a top 5 defense in the league. It didn't perform up to
For
that
sure,
level.
but we knew, again, this is kind of going back to what did we know, what did we expect? Sane people knew that 14 points per game and 230 yards a game are not sustainable numbers for the Colts defense. I mean, the first 4 weeks, it was ridiculous what they did to those teams. This was by far their biggest challenge, and the Browns showed it. And also, Jake, in defense of the defense, they were doing video game stuff in the first half. Mayfield,
I know.
Xavier Rhodes dropped a clear interception, which it couldn't have been easier. It hit him right in the hands, and some of those catches were just stupid that they had. Give them credit, right? Landry, Beckham, they're highlight reel guys, but I think some of the defensive, the trouble that the defense had in the first half was just, oh my God, they made incredible plays.
You know what is interesting? The year that Mayfield was taken number 1 overall, I remember we were doing the show on draft night, and we quite frankly were stunned that Mayfield was the guy. Because there had been, and I'm trying to think, who were the other quarterbacks in that draft? I know Darnold was right there. Josh Rosen,
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson.
I think that's right. And Jackson wasn't even thought of in the same mix with those others, right? It was like, well, you have these 4, like can't miss, and then Jackson was kind of the wild card. Because
are we missing somebody?
Does Bill Polian still think he needs to be a receiver? Lamar Jackson, remember that?
That's all of them. Mayfield 1, Darnold 3. Allen 7, Rosen 10, and then Lamar Jackson was second round, wasn't he? Yeah, he was
amazing.
the last pick of the first round, 32nd.
But I'll give the Browns credit because Mayfield, outside of Lamar Jackson, which obviously a ton of teams swung and missed there, and the fact that there were people that thought, well, he's going to have to play receiver at the NFL level, that's a whole different talk show. But I thought Darnold, because he had the size, he had the pedigree, we thought that was going to be the guy, or at least I thought that was going to be the guy. And for them to pull the trigger and go with Baker Mayfield, which stunned a lot of people, he looks like he's going to be the guy.
I don't want to venture too far off course here because I want to keep it Colts related. But since we're on the topic of the draft, something else that I think I've really noticed and I think Colts fans have noticed in the last 2 weeks, Chase Claypool and what he's done at Pittsburgh, DK Metcalf and what he's done in Seattle. And then you're thinking, wait a minute, the Colts needed a receiver in each of the last 2 drafts. And here are all these other guys, Terry McLaurin, who are killing it.
DK Metcalf, if I'm not mistaken, I recall when DK Metcalf was coming out, there were all kinds of pictures of him. He was built like Adonis, right?
Yeah.
He had like a 12-pack, and he's 6'4". He had all the intangibles, and yet there was this question about him. And I can't recall, and I tried to look it up because I was curious. Were there red flags with him? I don't recall, other than the fact that people didn't know whether or not he could be, like maybe his productivity was not there.
He wasn't
with all the intangibles.
He wasn't very productive, and there were serious questions about him as a route runner because he was just this guy that just ran straight and was a big play threat. And I think that I remember hearing a lot of critiques about, well, he can't run routes in the NFL, which clearly has not ended up holding him back at all.
When you're 6'4" and Superman, I don't know how good a route you need to run. Look, he's been you heard Russell Wilson. It was commented in the Seattle game that Russell Wilson absolutely thought he could be Jerry Rice, and lo and behold, when they needed a score, he was Jerry Rice.
And you feel for Paris Campbell because he just hasn't been given the opportunity health-wise to show what he can do. And now Michael Pittman with the leg issue going on. But you've got two guys that have been unhealthy, whereas every single other young receiver in the NFL has seemingly been healthy and blowing up, and it's, I think, caused a lot of frustration.
I have a question, Mark, a big question to ask to you, or rhetorically maybe, about Frank Reich. Something that concerns me. I like Frank Reich. I know a lot of people like Frank Reich. We saw, there were times when he went ahead and was the aggressive Frank Reich, going for it on fourth down.
I love the touchdown call yesterday.
And I know people like that.
That was great.
But I have a question about him.
Okay.
You want to get to that next?
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right. Again, you're watching Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network, brought to you by WGU Indiana. Just a reminder, WGU now in its 10th year. Remember, ambition never sleeps. So the best accredited online degree that you can get right here in the state of Indiana, and $10,000 in scholarships being awarded by WGU. You can always find out more about them at indiana.wgu.edu. My question for Frank Reich is Query and Schultz rolls on next.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
Welcome back to Query and Schultz. This segment of the show brought to you by St. Elmo and their fabulous. That's right, you can make the Elmo Cola because St. Elmo now has their own fabulous straight bourbon whiskey with cherry. Right there. See it? Absolutely fantastic. Cherry, bourbon, vanilla beans made within it, and you can mix it, the Elmo Cola. You just take a little bit of this, mix it with cola, and it's just like the fantastic drink that you can get at an Indianapolis establishment. St. Elmo Steakhouse, been around since 1902. Now available, Derek. Our friend Henry said that he went to Kroger and found one. St. Elmo.
Yeah, they're at all
bourbon.
Krogers.
What, Kroger,
Myers,
Target, throughout
Targets,
Central
yep.
Indiana. No,
any
it's
of those.
just Target.
Well, but they're plural, so it's, I'm saying any Kroger's location.
I actually mixed a little yesterday with some cola, or over the weekend, I should say, while watching the Colts game. And after the game, Frank Reich said the following of Phillip Rivers, and I'm paraphrasing. But he basically said, I thought he played really good football. I think he's playing good football right now. He is the least of my concerns. And I immediately had flashbacks to basically this point in last year's season when everyone could see that the end was there for Adam Vinatieri. And, afterwards, this is the least of our concerns. We're not worried about it. And yet, what happens? But the kicking game cost the Colts games last year. No question about it. There were games where the kicking is what cost them getting a win. Is this coach speak of a guy that is strictly trying to let his quarterback know that he has faith in him and believes in him? Or are we seeing a pattern with Frank Reich where he is loyal to a fault and stands by guys because he's convinced himself that's the guy when, in fact, maybe other things need to be explored?
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about the latter, no doubt. I think it is coach speak. I think that you say what you kind of have to say at this point.
Well, you also have to shop with the groceries that the general manager brings home to you, right?
That too. Yeah, but Reich was on board with this because a big reason why they brought Rivers in was because of the past relationship and connection he had with Reich and Nick Sirianni in San Diego.
Right.
So, without that, I don't know if they bring
is shrinking.
Rivers
it's
in.
Dipping down. Have you
No,
noticed
looks
that?
good to me. Huh? Looks just fine to me. No, don't raise it.
I think that's better.
Don't raise it.
I think that's a little bit better. What are you doing?
So anyway, like I was saying, I do think that
This
there
is much more comfortable to me, but it seems to.
Just stop. Can I talk?
My chair is like the play of Phillip Rivers. It feels good, and then you realize that it's just kind of diminishing.
a
as you go along.
little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not a Brissett guy, and even though I wasn't really a Rivers guy, I was kind of meh on Phillip Rivers. I think the Colts had to move on from Brissett. I think of all the moves that they could have made this offseason, the one wrong move was rolling it back with Brissett again.
Well, the problem with Brissett, to an extent, as absurd as this sounds, we, by human nature, have a hard time sometimes living in the now and instead live a little bit in the past. And with Phillip Rivers, I'm not saying that defenses necessarily do this, but with Phillip Rivers, when you are scouting Phillip Rivers or you're watching tape or you're preparing defensively, schematically for what you want to do against the Colts, the Phillip Rivers that is capable of throwing for 460 and 4 touchdowns, because we've seen that in his career, that's on his resume, that still is in the back of your mind, even though it's 2020 and you're thinking, well, this guy has no mobility, not that he ever really necessarily did, but some of that zip is gone. But you are playing still in the back of your mind because you've seen that out of him that's in the back of your mind, and so you have to be aware of that possibility, and maybe schematically that causes a defense to hold back a little bit, and that allows the Colts offensively to maneuver around a little bit. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, but with Jacoby Brissett, there is no blueprint of that, right? With Jacoby Brissett, it's like, hey, we can hone in on this guy and that's that, because there has not been a body of work to keep defenses honest at all.
Yeah, it's just tough because you basically have complete opposite quarterbacks. You have one in Brissett.
They're more similar than you think, though, right?
Well, they're both
because
limited.
They're both limited.
They're both limited, yes,
Right.
but they're opposite as far as their skill sets, because the best thing about Brissett is that he doesn't turn the ball over, but the worst thing about him is that he's scared to a fault. He's not aggressive
very
at all.
Conservative, correct.
And so he's so afraid to take chances and downfield shots that you end up hurting yourself. I still go back to that game in Houston last year, that Thursday night game. He didn't throw an interception. He was awful. Like, that was just a terribly quarterbacked game. It was the worst game that he played, I think, of the entire year. And if you're looking just at touchdown-interception ratio, you're saying, well, it wasn't that bad of a game. I think he actually ended up with a touchdown pass. But you can't just look at that. Like, we're so laser-focused on interceptions as interception bad. Sometimes interceptions show that at least a quarterback is willing to be aggressive. Andrew Luck threw interceptions, but he was willing to take chances. The problem for me, Jake, is that I thought that Rivers still had the ability to make big plays and to come through on aggressive throws. And so far through 5 games, it doesn't look like he even has that ability anymore to fit through tight windows and make big throws like that. And so, do you go back to Brissett? I think it's still way too early to go back to Brissett, but at some point, if Rivers isn't your guy, then it's got to be Brissett or Eason or something like that. You have to find a way to salvage the season. The good news for the Colts is that the schedule is still pretty light here. They've got the bye week coming up as well. They've got a bad Cincinnati team, and then I think they have Detroit after the bye.
Hey.
But then it really ramps up in the second half of the year.
Talking about Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, to me, does look like he is going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. But Derek, there is such a short window of time for guys to get their footing and their confidence as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And if they're getting battered around, that can become – you can get to the point of no return. Joe Burrow is really good, but they are not protecting him in Cincinnati.
Yeah, they got to keep him alive.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And so you worry about that. They've got really a long way to go. But you're right. He does look he looks like he's got some there's a reason why he went number one, right? And he had an historically unbelievable season. I mean, look at LSU. And they lost more than Burrow, but look at where LSU is now.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with just how good Burrow was for them last year.
Did you see, there was for those that are not on social media, on Twitter, I don't know, within the last week or two, there was this thing that went around of just name a random, whatever
how
it
do
was.
Those things start?
I have no idea. That's a good question.
So weird.
But all of a sudden, every sports team is sending out a thing. Name any random Dallas Maverick. The Colts, we forget this because you had the Peyton Manning era, which went into the Andrew Luck era. And what my fear is here is that we're getting into the random quarterback era. And by that, I mean from 1984, basically until Jim Harbaugh was here, it was every 2 years experimenting with who's going to be the guy. Who's it going to be? Who's the most random quarterback to start a game for the Colts in the last 15 years?
I mean,
20, let's say 20
in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Most random quarterback
it's hard to believe this,
a
but
game. Probably Josh Freeman, right? Because he's the one that people forget.
Correct.
Freeman and Ryan Lindley co-quarterbacked a game. I don't think
Lindley start?
No, I think Freeman left with injury. It was a Week 17 game in one of those throwaway years, one of those 8-8 years, 2015 maybe. I get the mediocre Colts years mixed up. There have been so many of them lately. But I believe Freeman started and Lindley finished.
Freeman, by the way, Josh Freeman, I thought he was a gifted guy, had size.
Yeah.
And I liked what he did.
Had one nice season in Tampa.
But he had some off-field issues. And that was ultimately why Josh Freeman's not still around and getting opportunities. I said 20 years and I forget that it's been 22 since Peyton Manning was drafted. So if you go before that, I mean, you get Paul Justin, Don Makowski.
Kelly Holcomb
got some opportunities.
Craig Erickson.
Did they have Steve Walsh at one point also?
I think so.
Yeah. So,
Did he start, though?
Erickson, I think he did.
Okay.
A game, maybe, but Erickson was the guy that when they got him, it was like, this is it.
Yeah.
Here's the guy. They have found their man.
Chris Chandler, Mark Herman.
Chris Chandler I liked.
Jack Trudeau. I mean, there have been a lot of guys that kind of went through there. But, Jake, this is – and I think a lot of you mentioned the Twitter reaction to losses. I think people were conditioned. There were so many Colts fans that became Colts fans in the 21st century. And people were conditioned to think, oh, this is easy.
Right.
That's
exactly right.
The Colts from 2003 to 2009 won 12-plus games every year. And they started a lot of those years 8-0, 9-0, 13-0, 14-0. And they didn't even have a loss until it was a crisis when the Colts would lose a game.
It's interesting because in watching Kansas City and the Raiders, and how weird is it to say Kansas City and Las Vegas, but in watching Kansas City and the Raiders, I'm watching it and I'm thinking the Chiefs have this aura of invincibility. Obviously, that was broken through yesterday or over the weekend with the Raiders, right? Mm-hmm. The Chiefs, as I'm watching it, I was thinking to myself, I wonder what that's like to be a Chiefs fan and to see a team out there that just is clearly on a different playing field than everybody else. And I realized that I took for granted. Part of it was because I was working and covering it, and that's just – I don't expect people to understand this, but that's a totally different mentality in watching a game than being a fan, because you're just – literally you're just watching it to see what unfolds, and you don't really have a rooting interest. But there's no question that I probably, like a lot of people, took for granted just how good and how dominant Peyton Manning's offenses and the Colts teams were when he was here, and that it wasn't always going to be like that. Mm-hmm. And then you get it into Andrew Luck where you think, well, no drop-off at all.
Yeah.
This could be, Derek, my point being, this could be, the Phillip Rivers experiment. This could be the first of a decade's worth of these, right?
20 years.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare people because I don't even want to think of that. But, I remember we had a pregame broadcast. I don't remember what year this was. Might have been last year. Yeah, they hosted the Dolphins last year, right? At Slippery Noodle, our old friends downtown, the oldest bar in Indiana, and Jake and our past life, we were big radio stars. And we did a pregame show at Slippery Noodle for every Colts home game. And we would always play kind of the jersey game, the visiting team jerseys.
Right.
And the thing that always stuck out to me anytime the Dolphins came is that you would never see people wearing current players.
Right.
And it's so depressing to me to think that the most common jersey that you would see with the Dolphins would be Marino, who hasn't played in 20 years.
And,
and you worry about that. There's always a chance. The Bills finally, we think, just found their quarterback since Jim Kelly. It took them 20 years.
And Josh Allen looks pretty good.
We think.
Miami is interesting because I know that there is so much talk to get Tua in there. And, of course, he's coming off the injury, and you want to make sure he's healthy. And people want to see what he can do. But they go out and get, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who you think is just there to keep the seat warm. And Derek, he's throwing for 350, 375 a game.
Yeah. He's good at just being like
he is.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is the perfect average quarterback, right? You know exactly.
But he's
what
above
you're gonna
average.
Get. I mean, I think if you're ranking
what
all
he
the
is?
quarterbacks, he's like 12 to 15.
He's
probably,
Jeff Garcia, right? He's just
that's-
this journeyman
that's
vagabond guy
probably fair.
that goes and
Yeah.
puts up 300 a game. When it's really time to push the chips in, I don't know that he's the guy you want at the poker table for you. But man, he'll hold the deck of cards for a while there.
But this quarterback situation, and this is going to be an ongoing thing for the show. I'm sure we're going to talk about this every single week. I still want to focus on 2020 because I don't think that this season is a wash because the Colts have had two poor offensive games back-to-back weeks and played their worst game overall yesterday against their best opponent who they've faced so far. But all of that said, the Colts and their situation at quarterback, it's kind of like it's picking your favorite. Remember the old Ernest movies? Like Ernest goes to camp and Ernest goes to the bathroom or whatever.
Ernest, what was his last name?
I don't remember. It was Jim Varney was the
If
actor.
I'm not mistaken, though, it was Vern goes to camp, right?
No,
I think Vern was the guy. Like Vern was the character and Ernest was his buddy, right?
No, Ernest was the character.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I think it was Vern.
I'm not sure how many people even get this.
There was a
reference.
Vern in there. Somehow
But
there was a Vern.
The Colts quarterback room is kind of like picking your favorite Ernest movie. They're all pretty bad. So you have
Did you actually see any of those?
You have to go. I really was a big Ernest fan. Yeah. Was
No
a big
way.
Ernest fan. Yep. Ernest Goes to Camp was my favorite.
Okay.
Really good one.
Okay. Mm-hmm. There was a Vern in there. Vern was his buddy. Hey, Vern. Wasn't that it? That's what it was. It was Ernest, but his buddy was Vern, and everything was, hey, Vern. That was his famous line. How do you not – I never saw the movies. How do you not know this?
I don't know. I almost didn't bring it up because
I think he was a spinoff of the commercials, right? It started with commercials, and then he became a character, and it was Vern that he was talking to in the
Ernest
commercials.
goes to school. Ernest goes to
Where else did he go?
Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that one? I'll bet that was a hit.
Wait, no. Ernest goes to jail. Sorry.
Okay,
Ernest
yeah.
goes to jail. Ernest Scared Stupid. Ernest Saved Christmas. Ernest Goes to Africa. Slam Dunk Ernest.
Were most of these straight to video?
Or he's a basketball player. Oh, wow. They've got YouTube clips on this one.
Okay.
I'm going to watch that during the break.
You do that.
We come back. We got plenty more NFL thoughts. The Dak Prescott injury, which was just heartbreaking to see on Sunday. We'll get into that. Also,
Did it really break
LeBron,
your heart, Eric? Be honest.
Frank
Did it really
Vogel.
break your heart?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was really. You see his mangled foot, and he turned down.
He had a dislocated ankle. That was
millions and
I
millions
haven't
of dollars.
seen the official diagnosis. I know that he had surgery, and they said the surgery was successful. But when I saw the ankle, I thought of Gordon. Immediately thought of Gordon Hayward and other injuries we've seen where it looks terrible, but it's fairly repairable.
But Gordon Hayward had already signed a mega deal when he broke his leg in half. Dak Prescott's contract situation,
Right.
It's going to cost him tens of millions of dollars because he's not going to command what he would have commanded had he been healthy.
Fair.
So we'll get into that. As long as Jake doesn't step on any more of my teases, we should have a really great show. It's Query and Schultz on ISC Sports Network. Back with more next.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
Welcome back. Query and Schultz, ISU Sports Network. I'm Derek Schultz. Jake Query is here as well. This segment brought to you by our friends at WGU Indiana. They've got a new scholarship on the line to celebrate their 10th anniversary. If you go to indiana.wgu.edu, you can check that out. 10 fat stacks to 10 newly enrolled
Fat
students.
Stacks. Look, Derek.
We're trying to be hip.
Look.
I'm just glad that Sage
the
went
owl.
back into the barn and hasn't bothered us since.
We have a Sage right here.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to the barn.
WGU Indiana believes the talent is universal, but opportunity is not.
Do you know why
Again,
Sage is the mascot?
indiana.wgu.edu. Because he's a sage old owl.
And because owls, of course, nocturnal, right?
What does
And
that have to
ambition
do with?
never sleeps. Well, I mean,
is that really the explanation? Because that actually is very interesting.
yeah,
if that
and
is
if you
the
want
explanation.
to, like if you want to work on your degree late at night, for example, after you get home from work and the kids are gone to bed, you still want to get that degree. The ambition never sleeps. You get online. Sage is awake.
Did you edit Sage's Wikipedia page, or what is this?
I'm just
Like,
telling you.
how do you know all these facts?
Derek, I just
it's amazing.
I was able to figure this out because I just sat down and I analyzed things. This is what I do.
Let's get a couple of more NFL thoughts in before we get to the NBA
Okay.
Finals concluding last
If
night.
this is the box, this is where you think. I think over here, outside the box.
Okay. That insinuates that you think at all. The Dak Prescott injury, really a tough one. We just kind of talked about the contract situation. And, of course, you get Nance and Romo for that pillow fight between the Giants and Cowboys, which actually resulted in Dallas ending up in first place in that craptacular NFC East at 2-3. But I just hate to see it when guys bet on themselves and then something like that ends up happening that is completely out of their control.
Well, if you recall, Dak Prescott wanted a lot of money. And, yeah, that's not to say that he deserved to be hurt. I'm not saying that at all. But the opportunity was there for him if he so chose to become a big-time paid player. But he wanted more and said, you know what, I'm going to go through, I'll go through the year and take my chances. And it's brutal. There's no doubt about it. One would hope that he is able to come back. And, you never know in the NFL with injuries. His injury was such that I think it's one that he can come back from. Is he an elite level quarterback? I don't know that he is. I think he's a good quarterback. Is he a $28 to $35 million a year quarterback? No, I don't think he is. He certainly isn't going to be now. So in that regard, look, I wasn't wishing an injury on him. He seems like, and I have a lot of respect for him coming out at the beginning of the year and talking about depression and mental illness. He's a fine talent and seems like a really good guy. So yes, you would hope to see him come back healthy and be able to get that money that now appears to be in jeopardy for him.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the Wilson, Mahomes level tier, but
Agreed.
I think he's probably right below that. I think he's if we're ranking quarterbacks, I don't want to do it on the show today, but he's probably somewhere in the late single digits.
That's probably fair.
Right?
Yeah.
7
8 to 12.
Yeah, I was going to say probably right around there, but you just hate to see it. I've bet on myself a lot of times, and luckily for me, it's always ended up working out. But there are times when other people bet on themselves, and that's a gamble that you take, and sometimes you lose.
Are the Raiders for real, or did the Chiefs simply have an off day?
I saw something last week about I don't even remember where I saw it. Chances the Chiefs go 16-0. And I just kind of laughed at it. I just don't think people realize how difficult that really is to do because you have afternoons like what you had yesterday. I was at the Box Factory, so I did not see
The Box
yeah
Factory.
at Amazon. So I did not see.
I was.
The
You know what I was
Chiefs-Raiders
doing?
game.
I was across the street thinking. You know why? I think outside the box.
So I missed that. But no, I'm going to chalk it up to, I think the Raiders look like they're pretty good. The AFC just looks like it's got a bunch. It's far easier to point out.
The Raiders have some offensive weapons, Derek. And when you have, what the Raiders can do, and they did it against the Chiefs, when you have a running back, and I love the way Jacobs is able to run the ball and just salt clock. You have some offensive weapons that you can move the ball around. And Derek Carr, I know a lot of people like to kick on Derek Carr. I personally think he's a pretty good quarterback. But you get yourself a lead even against – because the real trick against the Chiefs is keeping the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. When you have a running back that can salt you, get you 4.5 – and he didn't in the first half of the game, don't get me wrong. But when you are getting chunk yardage and moving the chains late in the game on the ground and running that clock, advantage Raiders. I thought they looked good. Are they a Super Bowl contender? No. But they're not the joke of a franchise they were 2 years ago.
And they look like they're going to be the only team that's even going to come close to giving them a push in that division because the Broncos just don't look like they have it.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see what the Chargers have here with Herbert and what's going to happen at quarterback.
I do like
with them.
Herbert.
Yeah.
I think he's got some talent.
He's got some arm talent, Jake. Hell yeah.
You got excited when you said
arm talent.
What does arm talent mean?
I have no idea, but doesn't it sound sexy? I mean, it sounds good.
He is, when Herbert came out of Oregon, the book on him was that he was a very coachable and, wanting to learn, no ego guy. And he goes in there, and who knows if he even gets the opportunity if it weren't for the Chargers team doctor allegedly puncturing Tyrod Taylor's lung when he was giving him a shot. But
yeah, it's just awful.
He comes in and look at what the Chargers, Tyrod Taylor was their Phillip Rivers, right? He was the veteran who'd been around the block that they brought in to just keep the ship stable until they handed over the reins. Now, granted, they had the heir apparent on their roster in Herbert. That timeline was accelerated because of the injury. And what did the Chargers say the first week? It doesn't matter. Tyrod Taylor's our guy. When he comes back and he's healthy, he is our guy. Well, Herbert plays well for 2 consecutive games, and immediately they reverse course. You know what? We're handing it over now. Sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Give him credit.
No, and we'll see because we're still talking about a very small sample size here. Nothing has been decided with Herbert, but he's always had this cannon for an arm that has been – I think Aaron Rodgers or somebody said, maybe it was Russell Wilson, said that it was, just ridiculous. Like he flips the whole field with his arm. So if you can hone in on that skill, we have seen guys that have cannons for arms not succeed. But if the Chargers have something there with Herbert, it's still yet to be determined.
But the quarterback position is such a fascinating one in the NFL because we want to put people on that pedestal too early. In Peyton Manning's case, when he was a rookie, I remember, it was like, is this really the guy? I mean, he threw for more interceptions. He set an NFL record for interceptions in a year. Obviously, we know what happened. Then there are guys that have success early, and maybe it's the circumstance or the roster around them where that success comes, and the quarterback gets too much credit, and then water starts to find its level, and you think, I don't know if he's necessarily ready for Mount Rushmore. Carson Wentz, who you mentioned earlier, is in that category to me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure him out because he was on pace to potentially be the league MVP in 2017, and weirdly, he gets hurt, and then the Eagles end up winning the Super Bowl anyway. I mean, it's such a strange kind of a season for them. But really outside of that, it's been a lot of who is this guy? Because I'm not going to say helter-skelter again because I don't want to go down that road, but you don't really know what you have there with Carson Wentz, and the Eagles have already rewarded him with a really big contract, so they're all in on him being really good. So we'll see what happens there. I still think, and we talked about this in previous weeks, I still think everything that's happened so far has pointed out to me, Jake, that the power of the league still resides in the AFC.
There is no question
because,
about it.
Look, even Seattle has kind of gotten by on the skin of their teeth in a couple of these weeks. They're 5-0. And they're very good, but we just don't know how good they are. Yet you look at the middle tier and the end tier, I mean, the Lions, the Vikings, the Saints, the Falcons, the Niners look terrible. I know they're banged up. They look awful. The entire NFC East is trash. There aren't a lot of really good teams. I mean, the Bears are 4-1. Does anybody think the Bears are great?
I still think Green Bay's really good.
Yeah, Green Bay's really good. I'll give you that. But that's the thing, Jake, that really we're talking about, and maybe the Rams, we're kind of sleeping, I think, a little bit on the Rams. I'm looking at the standings here. I'm trying to, figure out who I think is good. And I don't know if anybody in the NFC East is I know that no one in the NFC East is good. I don't know if anyone in the NFC South is very good. And then you've basically got the Packers, Rams, and Seahawks as the teams at the upper crust in the NFC.
I still think in my mind that New Orleans is really good. They're not.
No, because it's starting to erode for Drew Brees.
It is.
Finally.
Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater's done a nice job, but I don't know that you necessarily think of them automatically as being, formidable week in, week out. Same with Tampa. People thought Brady was going to, they got Brady and Gronk. Gronkowski, by the way, looks like he lost like 30 pounds and hasn't gained it back. By the way, skin of the teeth, that phrase, where does that come from? Do you
I don't know. I don't even want to think about it. It sounds kind of
Do you have skin on your teeth?
No.
That would be odd.
I didn't go to the dentist for like a year and a half.
You know who has
time,
skin on his teeth?
And
Hannibal
I felt
Lecter.
like I had skin on my teeth.
Really?
Yeah, it was just. I mean, I brush and floss and do all that, but it just felt gross.
Where does that phrase come from? Can you look that up?
I was in between
Can
being
you
on
find
my
out?
parents' insurance and being like a broke postgraduate college kid. And I only had part-time work. We've all been there, right?
So it was setting you up for what your life was going to turn out to be is what you're getting at.
You mean working for a multi-billion-dollar company, having my own TV show and a podcast, and contributing for Indianapolis Monthly?
And whose insurance?
I don't know about you, bro, but my life's turned out pretty good. Okay. I may or may not be on my wife's health insurance, but things are going pretty well.
Okay.
Things are going pretty well.
All right.
Things are going pretty well for the Lakers. They're NBA champions. Congrats to Frank Vogel. I'm so happy for him. He's a great guy, and I know that ultimately the end result here was the Pacers let him move on, but somebody asked me last night, do you think that Vogel is just a product of LeBron? And I'm thinking to myself, well, no. The body of work that he's put together, I think, speaks for itself, don't you?
Yeah, I think when Vogel was here, he was a really good coach. They had very good teams. And, the narrative when Frank Vogel left the Pacers was that he was running it a little bit too loosely and that the players – there wasn't enough, guys were showing up just a little bit late for flights or for practice or whatever else. And that's why they went with the polar opposite of that, and Nate McMillan that was kind of a disciplinarian type. In Orlando, you can't judge at all who or what Frank Vogel was because he didn't get a lot of time, number one. He didn't have a lot of talent, number two. I, for one, thought there was the possibility when he went to Los Angeles that, that's going to be short-lived, right? Eventually – no. I mean, he stays the course. And I think, Derek, this year's NBA season being obviously unprecedented, I think winning a championship in the bubble is actually almost more impressive because you take everything out of it.
No distractions.
No distractions, no fan, no home court advantage. It just is two teams are going to play and the best team's going to win. And to be able to win in that environment, and I'm sorry, I know and I understand why, because he was a thorn in the Pacers side for so long, and that does not make the Pacers unique in the NBA because most franchises would say that because he's played for a couple of different ones and broken a lot of hearts. If you cannot now understand and acknowledge the greatness of LeBron James, you have a buy. I mean, I don't know what.
Yeah, I got nothing for you. In fact, I feel kind of sorry for you if you can't enjoy this because – just from my personal experience, I spent the entire 1990s hating every single Michael Jordan moment. Every single significant moment of his career, I was rooting for the other team. I wanted the Cavs to beat him because they would have been the Knicks' next opponent.
Right.
Obviously, I wanted the Knicks to beat them all 5 times. They knocked the Knicks out. I wanted the 98 Pacers to beat them. I wanted the Jazz, the Suns, the Blazers, any number
Sonics.
of any of those teams to beat the Bulls. I hated Jordan and I hated the Bulls. And part of me now as an adult has always regretted that because I had to view it through that prism where I couldn't fully appreciate what was happening in front of me. And now, even though I despised LeBron James in the decision for 10 years ago, I decided, you know what? He's not worth hating. Like, I need to appreciate. We watch sports to be wowed and to see something special and great. And he's been special and great and wow-worthy for decades.
He now has 4 titles in the 4 games that won him a championship. So in the championship clinching games, in those 4 games, Derek, 3 triple-doubles and averaging loosely here because I did the numbers last night, but basically 28, 11, and 9.5. 28 points, 11 rebounds, and like 9.5 assists per game. 3 triple-doubles of those 4. And that's not, had they won Game 5, that spikes those averages because he had a 40-point performance in that game.
Too.
I mean,
man, what a finish that was.
Unbelievable.
It was incredible.
And he's 35 years old.
Yeah.
When is he going to slow down?
Yeah.
And he's been playing year-round for the vast majority of those seasons, basically.
Yeah, it's really it's unbelievable. And people can point to the finals record if they want. But again, it's kind of like Peyton Manning has lost the most playoff games. Do you know what that means?
It means he had to get there the most
times. It means
times.
Peyton Manning was in the playoffs every freaking year.
Right.
I mean, that's what it means.
Right.
Is LeBron's legacy greater if the 2007 and 2015 Cavs get bounced in the first round? Because then he'd be 4-4 in the finals, right?
Look at the team that he took.
What kind of logic
you know
is
years
that?
better than I, but when he had, Boobie Gibson.
07,
and
the first one.
What does that team win if he's not on that roster?
No, that team was horrible. It was one of the worst finals teams ever. Really, really bad. And it was a miracle that they even got there. And, Jake, they ran up against in the middle of their dynasty Spurs team.
Right.
I mean, that was title number 3, I think, for the Spurs, wasn't it, in that run that they had. So you had peak Duncan, Ginobili, Parker. I mean, they were completely outmatched in that series.
Right. James is unbelievable. Is that the last title for him?
No. I would put
Really?
the over under on titles for LeBron remaining in his career at 1.5.
So you think he could get to 6?
I think he could. I don't think he will. I think he could get to 6. I think he'll get to 5. Gun to my head if I had to call it. I would think that LeBron plays 4 more years and he gets 1 more title.
Is winning a title with 3 different franchises a sign of greatness or a sign of the times and transient and being a diva?
I don't really think it's either of those things. It's an
Someone asked
interesting historical quirk.
Someone asked me, and I hate almost making this comparison because it's very tired, but someone asked me, would Michael Jordan have hopped franchises? If Michael Jordan was playing today, yes. Michael Jordan was influencing trades.
Yeah.
Which, in 1995, you didn't have free agency like you have now. So, yes. I mean, free agency was the anomaly back then.
And he never had to leave. He had Pippen on an 8-year deal? I mean, the Bulls' core was basically together. They changed a little bit when they added Rodman, and the second three-peat was a little bit different than the first team when it was B.J. Armstrong and Horace Grant and all of that. But for the most part, the Bulls, it's a lot like what people say with Jeter and Kobe. Well, Jeter and Kobe never left. They never had to. They were with the freaking Yankees and the Lakers. Let
me tell you something that, and I know we're up against it, but let me tell you something that you see now that you didn't see 20 years ago. How often, folks, when you're watching an NBA game, how often do they show the 2 stars on the respective teams facing one another, and then they come up with a picture that shows those 2 players that are hated rivals of one another in 2020, and it shows them at an all-star game when they were in the 8th grade playing together, or at a basketball camp when they were sophomores in high school playing together, or in AAU when they were playing together or against one another. It's very possible that the first time Michael Jordan ever met Larry Bird was when he was playing against him in Boston Garden, or the first time that Patrick Ewing, obviously he had battles with Olajuwon, but the first time that Patrick Ewing and Rick Smits ever met one another was, on the floor. In today's day, because AAU basketball has been around for 20 years, what you're seeing now is guys that are in the NBA that cut their teeth, not in high school basketball per se, but in the summer circuits. And in the summer circuits, when your team is eliminated, if you are playing for a team in Gary and you are eliminated by a team from Bloomington, and that Bloomington team then goes to nationals, they're allowed to pick guys up. So they take the 2 best players from Gary and add them to the Bloomington team, and then they go and play. So that mentality is in guys' minds, and it wasn't per se when Michael Jordan was playing or when Dr. J was playing or Larry Bird was playing. So these guys, what we are seeing is at the ultimate level, the highest level, we are seeing the microcosm of grassroots basketball.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled that LeBron got this one because not that he needed validation, but, the whole what this season meant and LeBron being the spokesperson off the court for the league and the face of the league as well, just kind of that culminating with a championship. It just felt like it was the perfect marriage that it happened to be this year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm thrilled for Vogel too.
Do we have to do Buy or Bullshit?
We do. We've got that. We've got also our Winners Drink Milk from the American Dairy Association Indiana.
Got my milk hat there.
Feature coming up as well. Plenty more to get to as Q&S rolls along here on ISC Sports Network.
different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh my God!
We are ripping fast today.
How hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This
This is worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Welcome back. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Jake, we have the milk. Somebody on Twitter keeps making fun of me for saying I say milk properly. I don't know why.
You say milk.
Yeah, milk.
It's milk.
Milk.
Which beer tastes great, less filling?
Bud Light?
No, the other one.
Miller Lite.
Say the first word again.
Miller.
Correct. Miller. M-I-L-L-E-R. Miller.
Yes, Miller.
So you take that L, drop it off at a K, it spells milk, not milk. You say M-E-L-K, it's just milk.
I say it right.
No, you don't.
Miller Lite, milk.
You know what we need?
There's no difference.
We need to get
between
the milk song back on the show.
No, we're not going to do that.
That's
retired
fabulous.
forever. It's in my contract. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends at the American Dairy Association, Indiana. Experts agree that the body requires immediate fuel to recover and rehydrate during the first 30 minutes after a workout. After Jake goes to LA Fitness, he immediately chugs a chocolate milk.
Not LA Fitness.
After I throw my ish around at the JCC, I immediately chug a chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk's excellent, by the way.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love just milk, period. This is just 2%. Yeah. But you have to check that out with Winners Drink Milk, and
Wonderful.
you go to winnersdrinkmilk.com and learn more about the American Dairy Association Indiana and all the great stuff that they do for the dairy farmers of Indiana.
Would you like to go first, or do you want me to?
You know what? I'll start because mine's probably going to be a little bit more off the beaten path than yours.
If you use mine, I'm going to be livid.
I hope these factoids are right because Greg Rakestraw is a huge tennis fan.
Okay.
So I'm always kind of nervous talking about tennis in front of him. But I'm not sure how many people even realize it. I've always felt like it was – I shouldn't say that. The Australian Open, I think, is the most irrelevant of the 4 Grand Slams because a lot of them, the matches are at like 2 a.m.
My buddies Michael and Al down in Australia are not going to want to hear you say
that.
But
But the French Open happened, and if I hadn't seen the Roger Federer tweet, I might not have known that the French Open happened, to be totally honest. But – you know, we talk about appreciating greatness with LeBron James. Rafa Nadal's now won 20 Grand Slams, matching Roger Federer. He's won 13 times at the French Open. And it's just incredible to me, Jake, that you would have the stars aligned to have perhaps the 3 greatest tennis players ever all playing at the same time. And that's not to take away from Sampras or Bjorn Borg or, or any of these other guys. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, we always have to do but in this era, blah, blah, blah. Look, Djokovic and Nadal and Federer, it's incredible what they've done. In fact, if Nadal hadn't had Federer and Djokovic, or Federer hadn't had Nadal and Djokovic, they probably could have won 30 Grand Slams.
Right.
So, appreciating Rafa, he's been through a lot physically with some issues with his body breaking down and all of that. I mean, it's incredible. 13 French Open wins and 20 Grand Slams. It's insane.
Okay, I'm going to throw out some numbers for you, Derek. Not in tennis, but in football. And you tell me that they're not very impressive. 9 for 17 through the air for 37 yards.
That's a quarterback number?
That is.
Is that like Curtis Painter in 2011?
Here's the thing. It's not a great number until you know the backstory of it. And the backstory is that when Alex Smith basically had his leg completely shattered. There was talk that Alex Smith may never normally walk again, the former number 1 pick out of Utah. And by the way, one of my great trivia questions of all time. The only university to have the number 1 overall pick in both the NFL and the NBA in the same season. Andrew Bogut, Alex Smith, NBA, NFL respectively. But Alex Smith going out for the Washington football team and getting out on the field, and not just getting out there, but over the weekend, getting out there and playing, having his number called once he was activated and going 9 for 17. The numbers weren't spectacular, but the story, the comeback, the perseverance, and the strength of Alex Smith was exactly that, and that's why he is my Winners Drink Milk. And I'm fairly certain in saying that part of the rehabilitation for Alex Smith, he wanted to make sure that his bones were extra strong, and what better way to do that than to get that vitamin D that comes from milk from the American Heart Association.
Speaking of stats, I want to get these stats in as well because we mentioned this last week, but I want to repeat it. 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk, which you're drinking, in fact, that's probably about 8 ounces. That's more like 16, what you're putting down right now. Has as much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach, which Jake has for lunch every day.
10 cups of raw spinach right
as
there.
As much potassium as a banana, and as much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs.
That's pretty impressive.
Packs a punch.
Speaking of which, I just had it. I was going to pack a punch to you there. You want me to punch you? Show you how strong it is?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you can walk on thin ice if you want. The problem is that sometimes it breaks and you drown.
Okay. I'm a very good swimmer.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I can swim, too.
Okay.
So I can show you sometime.
You want to do Biden Bull Schultz next?
Yeah, we'll do that. Also, we've got I wanted to fit in a little bit of college football, which
Okay.
I'm always hesitant to do because then it turns into a state of the Clemson address,
Oh, yeah.
which I really don't want to do. But Notre Dame back
Big
in action.
win for Clemson, though.
Yep, big win for Clemson. And we're fewer than 2 weeks away from the start of the Big Ten season.
That's right.
So we'll talk about that as well. Corey and Schultz. Back with more next, ISC Sports Network.
It's next weekend, right?
Brewer jams it home.
That ball wiggles in and into the back of the net.
A little fireworks in the first half. Throw it up for Tillman. Whoa. My goodness.
122-6-0 for Penn. What a swim. Six of them.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz as we get set for the wildly unpopular and shockingly sponsored Buy It or Bull Schultz. Brought to you by the Shop Indie. The Shop Indie is fantastic. Retro t-shirts. Actually, I was wearing the Roslyn Bakery t-shirt last week, and my cousin Dave sent me a text and said, hey, my Aunt Phyllis, his mother worked at Roslyn back in the day. That's the great thing about the shop. They have the retro t-shirts. Now they have hoodies, by the way, for getting set for, as Derek had talked about, college football season, whether it is Purdue, Indiana. They have you set. The shop in Broad Ripple, 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, theshopindy.com, or in Carmel at Clay Terrace. You can see they have Busch Stadium, the very cool Indy. Of course, Winners Drink Milk. We love that. Burger Chef, the Colts, a ton of different shirts. What are you smiling so big for?
I think you're missing something.
What's that?
Are you looking at the screen?
Oh, the discount code?
Mm-hmm.
I did see Reggie Miller on Twitter was wearing the Roslyn Bakery shirt, and I thought maybe he used the discount code and probably wondered what in the world Tutties meant.
What's that discount code, Jake? I'm sorry.
It's
I didn't hear that.
TUDDIES.
Oh, okay. Tutties. 20% off theshopindy.com.
Okay.
Tutties discount code. Not Query.
Not Schultz.
Well, I'm just saying. That's certainly my word. I mean, I brought that to the American lexicon.
If you think
Tutties,
so.
pretty much.
Just keep thinking that.
Everything that I touch turns to gold, Jake.
Okay, so this is very simple. You make a statement, and then I tell you whether I buy it or I think it's bull Schultz, and you do the same,
Yep.
right?
Let's start with number one. I feel like we've made some sort of a statement like this before. I don't think it was last week, though. The Colts will make a quarterback change at some point this season. Buy it or bull bleep?
Okay, let me ask for this caveat of explanation. If it is because of injury, does that count?
No, this is under the assumption that the Colts decide to put somebody in there instead of Phillip Rivers.
No. I think that is bull Schultz. I think they will ride out Phillip Rivers. They're paying him $25 million. They know what they have in Jacoby Brissett. I don't think there's enough body of work to think that that's going to be an automatic leap forward. Look, Rivers did not play well and made some really bad decisions in Cleveland, but I don't think that necessarily defines. He's also had games where he's been pretty good. I think they're right.
Yeah, I thought he was fine for the first 3 weeks overall. I know that he had the bad interception in Jacksonville, which people point to, but I thought the first 3 weeks he was fine. He was bad against a really good Bears defense. But I think the biggest problem with Sunday, Jake, was he was bad against a bad Browns defense. Like, you only score 16 points against the Browns. That's unacceptable.
Right.
And that's really kind of what I worry about. I'm with you, though. I'm going to say bull bleep, even though I'm starting to feel a little bit shaky about that. Because if the arm is shot and he's completely washed, I think even if you know what you have with Brissett,
Look,
you've got to give this team a chance.
I think part of that knee jerk comes from just the aftertaste of what we saw in the game against Cleveland. You know what never has an aftertaste? And the aftertaste, if there is any, is fantastic. Right here, St. Elmo Steakhouse bourbon, absolutely fantastic. Hints of cherry and vanilla. You can make the famous St. Elmo Cola. Available now, Kroger, Target, Meijer, among other places.
Also 2% milk with no
Indianapolis.
aftertaste. Very, very good.
Yes, it is.
Statement number 2, buy it or bull bleep. Every LeBron free agency decision has been the right decision.
Well, yes, because he has won a title in each place that he has gone as a free agent.
And he did it in the second year in all 3.
The manner in which he did it, I think he would tell you was to be second
Probably
guessed.
just the first one, though, right?
Well, that's what I mean.
Going back home to Cleveland, I think everybody understood that. He did everything that he was set out to do in Miami. This Lakers one, maybe people didn't like him team hopping for a second time.
I've always said this.
It was smart to jump
Derek,
off.
when you were 18 years old, what did you do that really accelerated your personal growth?
Ooh.
But what decision did you make when you were 18?
I chose to go to college 900 miles away
Correct.
and hang out with people outside of my high school
You
friends.
went away to college, right? And that's what college is. I know college is as much, for example, WGU, Indiana. Ambition never sleeps. If you still want to, and you can go for that $10,000 scholarship. But college is much about the degree or the classes, is about learning how to just live independently and find, be around people different than you, et cetera. There's a lot to college beyond that. LeBron James grew up in the Cleveland area, got drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers. I've always felt like his stint in Miami was basically his time in college. It was the first time that he'd gotten away from the comfort zone of home. Crazy as that is when you live in that kind of a spotlight. But he was entitled to that. And then he went back and he delivered on what he promised. He was going to bring a championship to Cleveland, and he did.
And that's what he's done every time. He's delivered. He jumped to a new franchise. He won 2 titles in Miami. He jumped back to Cleveland. He delivered for Cleveland, who never won anything. And he goes to the Lakers. And I know it's hard for you and me who remember the Showtime Lakers and also obviously remember like the Kobe Shaq and then into the Kobe repeat Lakers. It had been 10 years since they'd won a title. I mean, that's forever for the Lakers.
17 overall now.
And they had a lot of bad teams in the 2010s. And so for him to come back in his second year and validate it by winning a title, it just speaks to his greatness. Statement 3, the Big Ten will have a representative in the college football playoff. Buy it or bull bleep?
I buy that because I don't see anyone. It's going to be Ohio State. The Big Ten is going to be allowed to have a representative there. And the only, again, caveat.
No caveats. This is buy it or bull bleep. Push them all on the table.
If COVID interrupts the season.
This is assuming that there is a college football playoff and we have.
Then yes,
like
I believe Ohio
season that
State will get
qualifies.
in because I think Ohio State is unbelievably talented, and I don't see anybody in the Big Ten beating them. And they got this shrunken down season now.
I think it has less to do with Ohio State, Jake, and more to do with the fact that the Big 12 is not going to have a representative, right? You could pretty much write off the Big 12 now. And the SEC only has 2 undefeateds left. Florida taking that loss this past weekend. So you've got Georgia and Alabama, and even Alabama looked, I guess for Alabama, looked a little bit shaky.
Well, they scored a billion points.
Florida would have to run the table, I think, at this point to get in. And there's really, I was thinking, okay, maybe the SEC could send 2 or even in some cases 3 teams, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Can BYU get in?
Maybe. Even though they had some trouble, didn't they, on Saturday? Weren't they a huge favorite, and didn't they have some trouble
I don't know.
covering?
I know that they had.
I'm on this gambling thread with a couple of friends on Twitter, and they were freaking out about BYU.
Speaking of which, BYU had a couple of players. There was concern they tested positive because they said they went to a gambling night. And I thought at Brigham Young University you have to sign like a Mormon code, like behavior code. I can't imagine gambling's part of that, right? I don't know what came of that, but BYU is undefeated.
Yeah, BYU is a big favorite against the Roadrunners, one of the great mascots in college sports, the UTSA, and they only won by 7. They only won by a tud. Or tuddy. I mean, you could say it either way. I kind of like transitioning into tuds.
Roadrunners are very difficult to corral, though. You can try the Acme bombs and anvils.
Yeah, I'd suggest not trying to blow them up. We have a pretty good sample size that shows that exploding a Roadrunner not going to end up working.
Me.
So, no, I do buy it. I think that there will be a Big Ten team. I would love to see it be Big 10, SEC, Pac-12, ACC.
Yeah,
but
right.
at this point, I mean, I'm convinced that Clemson just takes up a spot. The SEC champion takes up a spot.
Clemson
so really,
still
we're
has to go.
Talking about
Clemson still has to go to Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
The advantage that this year is going to create, I don't know how the other conferences are doing. I know in the ACC, typically the ACC is broken into 2 divisions. The winner of each division plays in the ACC title game. Now they're just simply doing everybody's playing each other and the 2 best records. So if Clemson were to lose at Notre Dame but still be among the top 2 teams at the end of the year record-wise, they could rematch with Notre Dame in the ACC title game, avenge that, and still get in.
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't think Clemson's not losing.
You don't know that?
No, Clemson's not going to lose, Jake.
You don't think Notre Dame could beat them?
And I don't think Notre Dame I guess Notre Dame there'd be no chance of a 1-loss Notre Dame team going because they'd have to beat Clemson at least once, right?
Correct.
Either during the regular season or in the ACC, because a 2-loss Notre Dame team wouldn't go to the playoff. So that's kind of where they are.
You think Notre Dame will beat Clemson?
No.
I think they could.
Yeah. I think if they played 10 times, Notre Dame might win once or twice.
Okay.
And it would take a near perfect game even to do that.
Okay. What's next?
But you always doubt Clemson. This is kind of who you are.
They've got some.
Like ever since you became a fan in 2015, you've picked them to lose over and over and over again.
I'm just telling you, they have some vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard for me to spot those because here's somebody that has no vulnerabilities. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We'll come back, wrap up the show next, and tell what you. We'll set the table for the week, and also tell you about what we got going on for next week as well. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Back for a final time on the ISC Sports Network. It's Query and Schultz. Jake didn't want to end on a somber note, but I just saw as we're taping this on Monday, Joe Morgan, sadly, passing away. And obviously you grew up a huge Reds fan. A little young for the Big Red Machine, but still kind of the aftermath of the Big Red Machine. And obviously he was a central figure in that.
Interesting. When I was a kid, Derek, you are correct. I mean, I saw the remainder of the Big Red Machine in their twilight. So when I would go to Riverfront, I saw Johnny Bench playing. He was no longer a catcher. I saw Pete Rose play and manage, obviously. But when I was a little kid, Doug Rippinger, who was a family friend, gave me a poster of Joe Morgan in about 1977 or 78. I still have it. It was the very first poster on my wall. And when I was heavy into baseball card collecting, Joe Morgan was the player that I decided I was going to try to get every baseball card of Joe Morgan. And he was with the Colt 45s and the Astros. He played for a number of different teams, but I probably collected 45 Joe Morgan baseball cards, including his rookie card all the way through. Had the pleasure of meeting him a few years ago. He was a true gentleman. And it's sad because, and look, this does not make me unique. This is part of life. But when you start to see the great players of your childhood or the great teams of your childhood have their central pieces ultimately retire and then ultimately pass away, it's sad. It was a great team, arguably certainly the best team in the modern era. I don't think anybody would question that, the Big Red Machine. Can you name all 9?
No.
Well, I mean 8, the 8 position players.
Yeah.
Catcher,
bench.
first base.
Here, hold on. Let me just try to name the names because I'm bad positions wise.
Okay.
So Rose, bench.
Rose was third. Bench was catcher.
Joe Morgan.
Second.
Cesar Geronimo.
Center field, very good.
God, I feel like you're putting me on the spot, and now all these names are flooding into my head. That was Ken Griffey Sr.?
Correct.
Okay.
I always
where
forget
am I at?
if
5?
Griffey was in right and Cesar was in center, but Cesar was center and Griffey was right. I always get those two confused.
Just hit me with the rest of them.
George Foster, left field.
George Foster.
Dave Concepcion was the shortstop. Joe Morgan, second base. Tony Perez, first base.
Perez, that's right.
Yeah.
And George Foster was a guy who early in his career you thought, oh my God, he's gonna hit 500 homers and do all this.
Hit 50 in a season. In
I mean,
78.
he still had a great career. He's a Reds Hall of Famer, but you kind of wonder what could have been for him in his career.
Great player, but yes, it is sad about Joe Morgan. A true ambassador for the game of baseball.
Yeah, no question. And for my generation, it was more Joe Morgan Sunday Night Baseball with John Miller on ESPN.
And he was great at that.
Yeah, for many, many years. So obviously sad to see. It's always sad when the sports heroes of your youth.
Correct.
And you're old enough now where they're dropping like flies, really.
Well, I don't know about like flies. Lou Brock. It's been a rough year for Hall of Famers. Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, now Joe Morgan, Whitey Ford.
Bob Gibson, another icon for sure.
Great player.
Next
Did you know Bob Gibson wanted to play college basketball at Indiana?
I had no idea until, wasn't it Zach Osterman of the Star that posted that?
I did.
He had an article about that?
Did he have an article? I don't know. I sent
maybe.
a tweet about it. But he wanted to play basketball at Indiana. Branch McCracken, Bob Gibson was under the impression that Branch McCracken, not impression, I think it's fact, would only take one African-American player per year. Chose Allie Bryant. And Bob Gibson didn't think that he would be able to make it on that roster despite his dream of playing in Indiana. Played basketball at Creighton, led him in scoring 2 straight years. Became a baseball star for the Cardinals.
Crazy.
Great player.
Yeah, it's funny how life works when it comes to that. We'll recap the Colts and who they even play next week? Cincinnati, right? Colts and Bungles.
Joe Burrow.
Next week. That's right.
All right. Be sure to go to Kroger, Target, Meijer, pick up your fabulous St. Elmo Steakhouse bourbon. And while you're there, of course, for dinner time, get yourself some milk from the American Dairy Association. Stop by, get a shirt from the shop. You'll be all loaded up to stay up late at night and be able to study it. That looks good, Derek.
Also, I forgot to mention this. Shout out to my friends at Nice Bison. If you like the stickers on my laptop, pretty sweet. They sent us some over. You've got some, Jake. You put one on your phone.
the Reggie Miller one on my phone.
Thanks to those dudes over there.
That's right.
Great stuff. I think it's just nicebison.com. Sorry, I had the website, and then I closed the laptop, and I almost forgot to mention them.
Okay.
We'll be back next week with more. Until then, see you guys later.